Welcome to the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, where we bring you a weekly dose of powerlifting news, tips, and training advice with a touch of 80s rock ballads. This podcast is presented by Team Roar Powerlifting, your source of the most comprehensive coaching and meet day preparation. Here are your hosts, Josh Rohr and Lara Sturm.
So welcome to the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, episode 40. Woohoo! We turn a master today.
we are a master now. We're a master's podcast now.
We are masters. And actually, I really am. I'm one of your hosts, Lara Sturm. Josh, that's when you introduce yourself.
Oh, and I'm Josh Rohr. Sorry. I'm new at this.
It's Monday. It's pretty hard. So reminder that we are streaming live while we record each week. We are recording now on Monday at noon Eastern time on Instagram Live at PL Ballads Podcast. Join in on the conversation. Send us a thumbs up, like, whatever you do in Instagram these days. I'm not even sure. I'm not on Instagram anymore. And also check out Team Roar on Instagram for all of your powerlifting coaching needs. So powerlifting and power ballads, but we're going to go right into power ballads today.
Yeah.
So we were going to talk about the top 5 albums for both of us from the 80s. And this is such a hard thing, right? I had 5 listed, and I wrote them down, and then I kept changing them like all the time. I'd be listening to different albums, then I'd be like, oh no, this one's better, no, this one's better. And then I started listening to this one Journey song, and I'm like, oh man, Journey should be on there, right? So I look up some Journey albums, and I'm like, these are all good albums, but it's not quite what I'm thinking of. And then another song came on. I'm like, wait, these are all on the Vision Quest soundtrack CD. Oh, CD. I had it in a cassette tape back in 1985. So my top 4 album is from 1985, the Vision Quest soundtrack. Soundtracks were a thing, a big thing, especially in the 80s. You know, there's so many amazing movies with great soundtracks. And Vision Quest as a movie wasn't even that great of a movie, but man, what a great soundtrack. Do you recall that one, Josh?
No, I actually don't.
Oh boy.
I'm going to just go. I have mixed feelings on this. Soundtracks seem like a little bit of a cheat. Because
I thought that too, but I'm like, hey, it really was an album. It's kind of a nice sampler album, and it brings me back in time to exactly where I was listening to these songs, and I wore that cassette out. So
I guess we'll allow it.
Oh, thank God that Josh allowed it. So I'm going to read the list of songs, and then you're going to go, wow, these are great songs, except for one. This one I really don't like. Only the Young by Journey. Change by John Waite. Great album. A great song. Shout to the Top by the Style Council. That's the one I really feel like, not so much. Gambler by Madonna. She's on the Zoom by Don Henley. Hungry for Heaven by Ronnie James Dio.
Dio.
I
love some Dio.
Lunatic Fringe by Red Rider.
Oh, I love that song. That was one of, damn it. You're all right. That was one of my songs on my top lifting songs. Red Rider.
I'll Fall in Love Again by Sammy Hagar. Can't go wrong there.
Yeah.
Hot Blooded by Foreigner.
Oh, Foreigner, sold.
Foreigner. And Crazy for You by Madonna. It's a great album. And unfortunately, if you go on Apple Music, you can't even buy it on Apple Music. You can only buy it in CD form from the original from Amazon.
Really?
Or you can make yourself a playlist. And the John Waite song is only well found on YouTube, because the version that's on Apple Music is live. It's not right. The original music video has the greatest rendition of the John Waite song Change. But this album just totally takes me back to 1985. You know, where I was in high school, and driving my car, I had this boombox that was Mickey Mouse rigged into my lighter, because these were the days before actual power adapters worked in your lighters. And, so I had this thing rigged into my car so I could have this boombox be playing in my car because I had an 8-track cassette. Remember 8 tracks? Yeah.
I
in
do.
my actual car, and it didn't work either. So
funny. So my first purchase of music ever was an 8-track. It was at a garage sale. I think I paid like 10 cents for it. It was Steve Miller Band.
That was a big old jet airplane.
Yep.
Did I have that one? Yes.
Did.
That was one of my first 8 tracks too. But my car was broken and it would only play track 4.
So it better be good. So let me see. Give me a list of your 8 tracks. Just tell me what track number 4 is. That's all I need to know right now.
Big old jet airliner for Steve Miller and Toys in the Attic. I think half of one song was on there. Toys in the Attic, I remember, was playing on there. But 8-track, they were weird. Like sometimes in the middle of a track, the song would like stop and then flip to the next track, play the previous 5 seconds that you were just listening to, and then proceed. Just such a lost art, the 8-track.
I feel like I used to have a whole bunch of them, and I'm sure I donated them or threw them away. I'm sure I didn't throw them away. I definitely didn't throw them away, but I do wonder like what those things. I don't know. I don't know what they're worth. Like, I wonder if they're worth something at this point. Maybe in like 20 years, they'll be worth a lot. I don't know. But I do kind of wonder, like, and honestly, I don't remember what all I had either. Like I did have a good collection of them. And yeah, kind of, I had multiple 8-track players because the same thing, like they all worked, but they all worked when they felt like working. So like I would just go from one to the other, find the one that was working that day. And that's what I listened to.
Yep. I mean, technology has sure changed. The cassette tape, remember having your cassette tape like get stuck and then you pull it out and
all of it's stuck in there. Yeah.
You had to like fix it. Yeah, it was pretty bad, but I did have the Vision Quest album soundtrack on cassette tape. It was amazing.
I do still have a lot of my mixtapes, the actual cassette tapes somewhere. I don't know where they're at, but I have a good amount of them.
Lost art, making a mixtape.
Yeah.
I made Dan a mix CD when we were first dating. That's how you know.
That's how you know.
They connect with your music.
Totally. This is a totally random story, but I went on a date with a girl one time. Believe it or not, I dated people at some point. But like when I first moved to Atlanta, I think I was on like eHarmony or something like that, whatever. We won't get into that. But this is right at the peak of me becoming like really into Foreigner. So literally, and this is how, anyway, I'll just tell the story and people can judge me for themselves. But I basically made her listen. So we sat in the car before we left and I made her listen to 3 Foreigner songs from beginning to end before we left. And I just sat there and watched to see what her reaction was. Now, in hindsight, that's a very weird thing to do. And I'm really.
You think so? Yeah.
Like she was nice about it, but then obviously she never talked to me again. So I think I pretty much ruined that one. But anyway, that's
pretty funny.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm regretting actually bringing that up now. So it came into my mind and I said it, and it's done now. So
it's out there.
Anyway,
the whole internet now knows that
you're
this weird guy on eHarmony that. Sorry. Not anymore. He's married.
Yep.
Congratulations, Hope.
You're the big winner. Oh man. Yeah. So that's your number 4 album. I guess I love the songs. I love the collection. When we decided to do an album, I wasn't anticipating movie soundtracks and or greatest hits, but I feel like that's probably a loophole that we should have specified. So,
so I cheated.
No, so we never specified, so it's allowed. But I'm saying we should have potentially maybe made it a little bit more. So I'm very much a purist, like the actual album, like where the songs came out and things like that. I don't know, whatever.
Purist.
Anyway, purist, yeah.
I think the 80s were so unique in that they had so many soundtracks that were so good that it was kind of it's like a time capsule.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think it's valid. So I would have had to argue with you about that.
Okay.
Even though, even a greatest hits album, I'd almost argue that that's acceptable too, because, back in the day, my Aerosmith greatest hits, that album almost made my list because I listened to that until that tape wore out as well. And it just is. So sorry, wrong.
I'm always wrong. All right, let's move on to our submitted top fives from our listeners. So we'll just go down the list. Each week we get more and more people submitting their list. So we're just going to go through and read the number 3 album. Ben Green, his number 3 album is Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. Thumb up or down?
I'd go a thumb up on that one because that's a great album.
All right. Chris Elmore, Van Halen, 1984.
Great album. It wouldn't make my top 5 because I think Van Halen has better albums.
So you give it a kind of half up, half down?
Mostly up.
Mostly up, like a 45-degree angle, sideways thumbs up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a great album. And I remember where I was when all that happened. I remember one of my friends throwing we were listening to the album and she threw this piece of hardware and it hit me in the head and it really hurt. That's what I remember about 1984. I don't know why.
Getting hit in the head by hardware.
Yeah, it was great.
All right, Cindi Jaeger, number 3, Queen, greatest hits.
See, there's your greatest hits caveat, but I'd have to give that one a thumbs up as well. Although, would most of those songs come out in the 80s or the 70s?
So that's the thing. That's the loophole. Some of those songs came out in the 70s, but that album came out in the 80s.
In the 80s. And, Queen had such longevity, you can't thumbs down that one. You just can't. Nope. Great album.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I would, in hindsight, I would not have allowed a greatest hits to be one of the things, but then again, you say that it should be, so I would lose that argument anyway. So whatever. Anyway, Stacie Metcalfe, Def Leppard, Hysteria.
Great album. I argue that Def Leppard Pyromania is a better album.
Was that 80s?
That was. It was early 80s, early AF 80s.
Early AF.
Great album. But Hysteria is a great album too. It just feels a little more mainstream to me than Pyromania.
Yeah. Chris Elmore is watching live and he says greatest hit albums don't count. Noted, Elmore.
Josh Rohr agrees with you.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah. Amy Pancake, Van Halen, 1984, which is the same album that Chris Elmore has selected as number 3.
Crazy coincidence.
And you gave that a 45-degree thumbs up? Is that what it was?
I'd give it a thumbs up. I'd give it a thumbs up still.
Okay.
All the way.
Stephen Fortenberry, Megadeth, Peace Sells, but who's dying? Who's buying? Who's buying?
I mean, that sounds like something Megadeth would say, but that's a great album. I'm almost mad that I didn't think about it, but
yeah. So some of these, this is what's interesting. Some of the submissions, the later submissions have been kind of more of the, the Megadeth, Metallica type music that we don't traditionally pick when we talk about our 80s and power ballads and stuff, but it's still an 80s album and it's still a great album. So I agree with that one. And our newest submission came from Eric Cordeiro up in Boston. Or maybe he's not in Boston. He's the Massachusetts state chair, I believe. His number 3 is Sheer Terror, Just Can't Hate Enough. And I'm not familiar with that.
I gotta say I'm not either. And now that it's made his list, I feel like I need to go listen to that, because
we're gonna have to
someone's list.
We're gonna have to
deserves a listen to.
We will have more input on that next week, because I'm gonna have to look into that as well. But fun side note, along with his submissions, he sent me a lot of trivia that I'm going to read straight from his direct message. So starts off Back in Black trivia. Even though, and I guess it's because some of our listeners selected Back in Black for their number 5 or 4, myself included. But he goes, Back in Black trivia. Even though Agnes has always shot it down, most likely Bon Scott wrote some of, if not all of the lyrics for Hell's Bells and Have a Drink on Me, which makes sense because they seem very much like something he would write. He died in February 1980, and they recorded Back in Black like 2 months later. Interesting. And another side note, he wrote, 1984 is arguably the best year for albums in that decade across all genres.
I'd have to look at slicing that year up. That's interesting.
Yeah, I haven't broken it down by year, but that's it's a possibility. So I'm just thinking, like, basically of some of the albums that we've already listed. So Out of the Cellar by Rat was 1984. That was yours last, your number 5. Purple Rain from Prince was 1985.
Van Halen 1984 was.
Or I'm sorry, Purple Rain was 1984. Why did I say 1985? We're talking about 1984. So Van Halen's 1984.
Was in 1984.
Yeah. So I don't know. That'd be an interesting. Maybe when all these lists are done and we reveal all of the albums, we'll have to like compare years from all of them and see. So I wouldn't neither confirm nor deny. Man, Elmore's all over our comments here. All right, so that was the best Megadeth album from Elmore, and he also said Back in Black came out in July, and agreed Bon Scott probably wrote a lot of the lyrics. All right. Elmore is the you missed last week's episode. You haven't listened to it yet. You haven't even listened to it yet. So Elmore is basically a encyclopedia, and he did all kinds of research and was going on and on, like, with all these facts and stats. And
I'll have to go back and listen to our own podcast. I can't stand listening to the ones that we've recorded because I can't stand listening to my own voice. But since I'm not there, perfect.
Yeah, I actually like listening to myself talk.
That's not surprising.
Not really. It's I really can't stand it either, but it's all right. All right, so let's move ahead to the powerlifting situation, and I'll ask you the question this time. So, heading into third deadlifts, you're in third place. You can go conservative, average, or aggressive with your third attempt deadlift. A miss means you will likely finish in 4th or 5th place. Again, you're currently in third. So you can go with a conservative approach, which would be a small jump, and basically secure third place, and we'll say you have a 90% chance to make that lift. You can go with an average jump, an average selection, which would move you into second if you make it, and you have a 60% chance to make it. But again, if you miss, 4th or 5th place finish. Or you can go with an aggressive jump, which would be a pretty big jump, and you would move you into first place with roughly a 20% chance of making it. Again, if you miss, you move into 4th or 5th. Which one would you pick?
Aggressive.
You would pick aggressive.
Aggressive, hands down. 20%, good odds.
Yeah, no matter.
It's the third.
Sorry, I'll let you defend your answer before I.
Well, it's the third attempt, and this is why the total matters. And you're not there to get second or third place. If you try it and miss and get 4th place, at least you tried it. I just hands down, it would be aggressive. Now, if you said aggressive, you have 2% chance of making it. I might be like, it's too aggressive. Let's bump it down to be average and learn to lift better and take it as experience and go for second place. But I would no means go for conservative, because that's what the meet is for, is to compete. But 20% seems like pretty good odds. And third deadlift, you're pretty hyped up. Let's go.
So 20%, that means an 80% chance you miss. That's still
Correct.
good odds to you?
Yes, still good odds to me.
Okay.
I think I've come against these odds.
Yeah, true.
And there was definitely one that I made an average jump and missed and still got second.
Yeah.
But at least I tried.
Yeah. So I have a little bit of a different thought process here, only because when I write these, I also think of all these little outlier scenarios just to argue. So I was going to argue whichever opposite of whichever you said. So I would, depending on this, on the competition. So let's say it's regionals, right? And how regionals works is if you get top 3 in your weight class, you get a 50 kilo addition to your total in terms of qualifying total. So if your goal is to qualify for nationals and you need to make sure you get top 3 and your total's big enough that 50 kilos carries you into nationals, then I would go conservative and live to qualify for nationals. Mm-hmm. Now, if we're at, let's say a nationals, I think I would go with the average jump because 2 reasons. One, you want to be you probably, your goal is to win for sure, but your secondary goal is probably to try to make the national team. So if you go aggressive and miss, then you end up 4th or 5th, you're not going to make the national team. I think going average and getting second is probably going to put you in a pretty good position to make as an alternate. And with a 60% chance to make the lift, I think I like those odds a little bit more than 20%. And, I think in that situation, conservative probably isn't going to do anything for us. Some people might argue that they want a medal and that's really all they care about. So if that's the case, again, that's going to be an individual lifter, preference. If they really just care about medaling, then we may go that route. But in general, I'm a more aggressive style attempt selector. I just don't like the odds with a 20% chance to make it, to move into first. And again, here's the other the other wording of all of this. That's to move into first. That doesn't guarantee that you get first. And that was done. That was done intentionally because that implies that there's still lifters after you. So I think, a regional meet, I would probably go conservative to guarantee the spot at nationals, and at a national meet, I'd probably go average. And the only reason that I would do those is because of the chance of moving down into 4th or 5th. If you had nothing to lose, absolutely you go aggressive. If you're not gonna finish below 3rd, no matter what happens, put it on the bar. But with this high probability that you're gonna finish in 4th or 5th if you miss, I think you play the odds a little more in your favor in that scenario.
Very tricky, Josh.
Yes.
Very well thought out. Very nice.
Very nice.
Yes, very nice.
Cool.
Okay, I'd have to agree with that.
Yeah,
but logical thinking.
I don't think anybody can say any of these are wrong, because again, even if let's say even if you would go aggressive, but if you're coaching somebody that all they care about is getting a medal at the meet, well, you're probably going to adapt what you would do for yourself to more what their goals are too. So I think, it's an individual preference.
Yeah.
There are no wrong answers as long as you can defend it well.
As long as it's not a greatest hits album.
As long as it's not a greatest hits album or a movie soundtrack. Yeah. All right. Our new lifter tip from Saturday: train with the correct equipment. For example, Velcro belts are often used by new power lifters coming from CrossFit or weightlifting, but Velcro belts are not allowed in powerlifting competition. So it's important to know the requirements and practice with the correct equipment so you know what it'll feel like on the platform.
Absolutely.
I think it's...
I mean, and how many times have you seen somebody showing up to a powerlifting meet and equipment check with a Velcro belt?
Yep, a lot. and wearing something new on meet day is never a good idea. And yeah, I just think, just knowing the rules, like, what you can wear and what you can't, and practice with it.
Absolutely. Because just making little adjustments can make things feel completely different. And you want meet day to feel exactly like training as much as you can. So it's definitely makes sense to train with the right equipment. If you always wear weightlifting shoes for squatting, squat every time with weightlifting shoes. Use the right belt, use the right wrist wraps, and, start out that way. And so you can just keep continuing. Doing anything different on meet day is just not a great idea.
Agreed.
And just getting used to your equipment just takes a while, so that your brain starts picking up this feels the same. This feels the same, like over and over and over. This feels the same.
Yep.
So,
true.
Yeah. And it breaks my heart when people show up to powerlifting meets with a Velcro belt and you're like, no, you can't use this. What do you mean I can't use this? Well, yeah, it's just not acceptable. So
Yep.
There you go. Well,
so
at least we're in agreement there.
Yeah. So we'll end with a little bit of just reminder that the Georgia State Championship meet is not this coming weekend, but next weekend, April 24th and 25th at No Excuses CrossFit in Sewanee, Georgia. Come check that out. It should be a good meet. That's pretty much all I have. How about you?
That's all I got. I will say I moved last week, but my powerlifting rack is already set up.
Awesome. Of course. You don't know where your clothes are.
I have no idea where my clothes are. I can't say I've trained, but it is set up and we are ready to train.
Perfect.
My squat shoes, I'm not sure where they are. I could probably bench because moving is just so discombobulating, but at least the power rack is secured and the weight trees have weights on them and we can go.
So you got your internet up so you can record the podcast, and you got your equipment set up.
Don't have internet.
How are you on?
House.
How are you?
This is
your old house. Got it. Okay. Well,
yeah.
So much for that.
Yeah. Nice try.
So you got your rack set up.
I've got my rack set up, but I have no internet. So
awesome.
Priorities. We are in rural America, so that is the trick.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll call it there. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at PL Ballads Podcast, or shoot us an email. Submit us your top 5 80s albums at plballadspodcast@gmail.com. Later.
Bye now.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode of the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, please remember to subscribe and share it with your friends.